Well, good morning. This is Lex. I'm here at Integrate, and with me here on the table, I have Chris, with a last name he will pronounce himself. Chris comes from, is it Norway?
No, it's from Sweden.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
He's
that's
from,
fine.
from Sweden.
Close enough.
In the Nordic area of Europe,
Yeah.
from a company called Frends, and Frends is a partner for Devops 360. Clearly, one of our products that we have on our stack. And we have invited Chris here to talk a little bit about the future of integration and the take of Frends and the kind of solutions that they provide, to solve common issues in Microsoft integration. So. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Really nice to meet you, Lex. And I'm going to address the audience here. Super nice to see you all. My name is Christian Skrael. I come from the company Frends, and I specifically work with the partners in the Nordics and, of course, across the globe. And the short intro is Frends is that we're an integration as a platform, iPaaS product, and about the only one that runs natively on Azure. So that means that we're highly compatible with the .NET ecosystem, works really well. And we also like is that we can merge business and tech effectively together in the way you use the product to solve specific use cases.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we know Frends also from years ago, back in the BizTalk era.
Yeah.
That you also had a monitoring solution, but you have drifted to another direction.
Oh yeah, I mean, like prior to I think 2014, we used to be a plug-in to BizTalk, so we were actually complementing BizTalk with this sort of user interface where you could orchestrate your automations effectively. But then we saw that the interest from the market grew and then decided that we actually have to create our own product around it. But we've stayed in the Microsoft ecosystem since, and that's the way we're going to do it as well in the future.
Yeah. So Azure only, Microsoft stack.
Yeah, exactly. But we also built the product to make sure that it's agnostic across disciplines, right? Because if you're speaking about best of breed, for example, that's going to mean a lot of different things for different companies. Like if you are a manufacturer, you might want to house your production systems on premises to ensure that if the fiber cable breaks, things are going to run effectively. So we built the product to ensure that you can orchestrate your cloud, your on-premises services all together in the same workflow to really support your strategy the best way possible.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, we have been thinking also to talk about how you as a company indeed thinks, what's your vision about how organizations should realize growth when maybe maturing their integration landscape. What's your take on that? And where do you come from? And where are you now? And what are we looking to in the future?
I mean, we can all say that the past 15 years have been amazing in terms of technological innovation, right? Things have been happening at such a fast pace that it's almost hard to keep up. But we also see like empirical evidence that most initiatives actually still fail, much due to strategic disalignment, and sometimes because it's just hard to, get your ideas onto the table and actually do them for real. And what we also see that like the time from your idea to the first value sometimes becomes a bit too long. So one issue we see is that companies might spend 6 months or 12 months building strategy, but then it looks good on paper. You put it out on the sea and it's not aligned with the needs of the market anymore. So you also need to find quicker ways to help them, get stuff done quicker. And that's also why we build Frends to be so sort of forward-oriented in terms of customer needs, and that you're building processes that actually answer some kind of outcome, like how do I increase sales, or how do I help employees do better and become happier, for example. Yeah.
This kind of makes sense, right? What you say, that it can be so hard to go to market with a specific solution. Because you have all those different microservices.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you need engineers who are very skilled in all those different microservices and be able to glue the right ones together.
And take something as technical as like forecasting for sales. And now you know that AI is going to be able to solve this in a much better way than common algorithms that have been existing for the past 15 years, right? But you still don't know exactly which AI solution is going to give you the best output in terms of the sales forecasts. So what you need to do is like experiment with 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to do it quickly. And they use the evidence from all those different variants to compare it, right? So if you take that into the integration and automation landscape, it's really about finding ways to benchmark, right? So that instead of trying to build an automation that's super big, do it in pieces. Like start with what you know.
True.
Launch it. get feedback, improve upon it. And that's the kind of agility we need to see increase a lot more organizations. So they're not trying to find the answers when they don't have data. Instead, to find the minimum version that works, get evidence, improve upon it, and always do it with some kind of outcome in mind. So, people can say that, yes, I am happier because of this. Yes, my team is performing better because of this. And yes, my risk is controlled better because of this, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's a good and very common approach anyway. Start small and grow bigger over time.
Yeah.
Just like you said, take the feedback and grow, and then you start with the next iteration of the solution.
Exactly. I mean, I think that also applies to how you procure technologies, right? So one of the cool things about living this era right now, it's like a candy store. Like if we want something, it probably exists. And there's probably 10, 20 variants of that same thing that exists, right? But you also have to think about how much time do I spend looking for that perfect solution versus actually doing something that attains value. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what you and I think, there is going to be a stakeholder that asks you, what's the outcome? What's the impact? So that's the sort of time to market, time to first value issue that we have to address. But then again, I mean, with Frends, why we built the product to be very hybrid friendly is that we wanted to make sure that depending on the company's need, we could actually fit into that effectively with the way you build automations and integrations. And if they prefer to have their production systems in-house, fine. If they have some services in the cloud, okay.
You go ahead.
And if that use case captures both of those different systems, okay, great, right? And we also build it in such a way that, it's pretty trivial to assume that a product is just drag and drop, right? Developers need extended capabilities to do more things, right? Sometimes you have sales orders that look a bit odd. The data is not going to be harmonized. So we actually supported like full code snippets, so you can write C# as code blocks in the code. So you can imagine like in one step, get the orders, but then you have the challenge of making it harmonized. You can actually write that C# snippet inside the automation flow and then get the data out on the other side in a structured, nice way that the next system or stakeholder that's involved is going to understand. So that's our way of sort of empowering both the way you think about business, which is the process automation, but then of course the full capability of doing code, because both are needed to create the best solutions in our mind.
Sounds good. Well, I must admit, I'm a very technical guy myself, so I'm very eager to understand, what does your platform, what does your solution look like? I know, on the back end, you use all kinds of Azure services.
Exactly.
But how does it work? How is it structured? What's the experience that you give to engineers, even to testers?
So we've essentially ensured that all the sort of disciplines around integration and automation exists in one unified experience. So that goes whether you want to create process automation, whether you want API management, or anything that has to do with integration as a whole. And what that enables for the developer is like, it's a one-stop shop, whether you want to create your use cases, whether you want to expose APIs, or to have effective governance of the processes that you run on. So that means that you have an API gateway layer, you have reusable components for your process automations, and you also have visual monitoring. So one of the things that I really like about Frends as a product is like if something fails, because things are going to fail, and that's fine, right? It's one thing having a debugging interface that you have to read through and then see where in the stack did the failure come from, right? But in Frends, you actually see it visually, and you see like in this step, it became red. And then you might suspect that, maybe I did something wrong in this new version of the process, and I have to compare that to my previous version. You can actually see those changes visually as well.
Okay.
Cool. And because we're trying to merge like the business terminology around business process automation, along with the integration, it also means that there's like a common language. So if I'm a business person, you're a tech person, the source of truth is how the process is described, right? And that also enables like better collaboration and better ways of working. And then of course, like each of those tasks inside the process automation could be like a SQL Server question, it could be a REST API call, it could be something that you push towards a queue to run some kind of LLM. It really depends on what you need. And in some cases, like in the far like more user-friendly side, you have connectors that are more easy to use, like sending an email, and all that component needs is an email address, and that's it. And the implementation below that is like separated and all harmonized. So you can actually enable non-code users in that way to do automations, but still have the flexibility of like maintaining those assets centrally. And one use case that's common among like retailers is credit checks.
Yeah.
What do you check for credit? Well, you don't want to accept orders where customers couldn't pay, right? But that is used in 20, 40 use cases now, and you don't want to maintain it in 20, 40 automation processes.
No.
But then that reusable component, when that's updated, that updates all the use cases as well.
Okay.
So that's very convenient.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then, as I said, we have the agent structure where you can essentially deploy agents onto your private cloud or onto your on-premises environments, which allows those automation to run both separately, but also with other systems that have other agents. So that supports, complex use cases in banking, for example, where the automations have to be offline.
Yeah.
And you can then deploy them easily to those agents, and those are going to run locally on those systems without connectivity to the internet. But Frends is bought as a SaaS product, so you just hit the web page and you sign up and you get it. But then you can decide, like, where do I want to run my things, whether it's like as a default or in a private cloud or in the on-premises environment or everything at the same time. So we're trying to stay agnostic, because tech solutions is really up to the customer to decide what works best for them.
Yeah. And that makes sense. That's also what we see, of course, with our own products, indeed, that, some customers, for very good reasons, they go for private hosting. Otherwise, they are fine to have everything running in SaaS, so they don't have to worry about upgrading to new versions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And since we're like sitting in the Microsoft ecosystem, we're also using a lot of the capabilities to nurture how we think about the development of the product. So like the AI stuff we have coming up, most of the first things we're going to do is going to be focused on developer productivity. Like, you should be able to have your co-pilot inside of Frends to easily say, I have this JSON body that I need to convert to this different structure, like Edifact or something. And you just speak to the agent or the co-pilot, and it's going to help you out doing things that improves your productivity. So we're really thinking about developer empowerment here, because that's where the core is. And then the organizations can do more because of that.
Yeah, sounds really, really interesting. Yeah. So I've been thinking that, you already mentioned about those components, right? Like sending an email or all kinds of small tasks.
Sure.
That really gives me the feeling like it's building those integrations. It's not like taking all kinds of different resources from all over the Azure stack, like a Logic App and all the other stuff. But it's more a bit like how you would also create a Power Automate flow, right? It's you need to be less of an integration person. To start creating integrations and set up automations.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is this kind of
it's somewhere in between, right? So we could be we could be super technical, or we could be super non-technical, but somewhere in between is usually where we are. And what we're trying to achieve now with Frends coming into organizations is to get like a culture where development and business works together on the same kind of outcome. And there's even situations where you mix Azure and Frends together in different ways. So sometimes we work with SaaS companies, right? And SaaS companies, they build their products using like Azure functions and all that. So that Azure function can actually be a task in the process, like create the sales order or create the credit check, right? So it could be a mix of both. And sometimes, especially with Power Automate, which is more user-oriented, you could actually use Frends to trigger something that should happen closer to the user itself, right? So we can actually merge Azure and Frends together to create the best kind of both worlds. And that's the way we think about it as well. I don't think one solution is going to solve everything. You need to find the best things that fits together very well. And the fact that Frends is built upon Azure makes it very compatible with the existing Azure services. It makes it easy for organizations who have an established Microsoft strategy to get the most out of Frends very quickly. And that also goes for the way we think about BizTalk. So there's a huge transition happening now, right? Where a lot of customers have to go from BizTalk to something else. And we really care about that. And of course, we have the benefit of having had sort of like a legacy with BizTalk, having been part of the product as a plugin prior to 2014. So we've actually built a migration tool that makes it really easy to move your BizTalk assets into Frends. Yeah, and what happens essentially is that, one of the problems that you see with migration is like, you can migrate the assets, but the documentation is sometimes done poorly. And we're not blaming any one developer. It's just that that's the way things were done.
That's the way things go.
And BizTalk probably didn't enforce you to create the documentation in a consistent manner either, right?
No, not really.
So what we're doing here is that we're importing the assets. Frends reads the BizTalk assets and then creates an automation that's more sort of like an automation flow should be, and then it creates the documentation automatically as well. So for organizations that are looking to make a quick transition from BizTalk to Frends and finding the power within the .NET ecosystem, should really consider investigating it and exploring this with us. And we have so many successful cases now that it's almost becoming impossible to keep up. But of course, we want to add more successful customers to that roster for anyone who's interested.
True. Yeah. That totally makes sense.
Yeah,
very interesting. So indeed, as you said, you're really into the Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah.
How about stuff like versioning, DevOps?
Very good question. Yeah. So specifically in versioning, that's also the hard part of documentation, right? Just because you build a nice process, what happens with the changes and all that. But as I said, the versioning is fully automated. So if you do like an update of the process, maybe you have a sales order thingy and you add the credit check, and maybe you add AI, because sometimes a credit check is not enough to check if the risk on that customer is acceptable, right? So you're using the best of both worlds. So when that happens and you save the process automation, you actually see that version 1, version 2, they look different. And then you can see like a green plus that this has been added compared to the previous version as well. Which also means that like if something went wrong, you can actually go back to the old version or capture things from that old version that could be working differently from the new implementation you did. And what we'll also do, as you said, DevOps, that's really important, because that's also enforcing a culture in the way you work with development in general.
True.
So with Frends, there's also like a development, testing, and production environment, right? And we've set it up in such a way that, in development, you can do anything you want. It's like a sandbox, right? But that's where you explore the best ideas for your solution. When you then move the process into test, that's where you probably do like an early adopter or like a pilot with users or something. And then you push it towards production once it's ready. And also that also allows you, like if you make an update to a process, like a version 2 of it in your development, and then you want to push it to production, Frends knows how to update that process and make sure that the versioning is kept consistent as well. So you can also work in different pipelines sort of very effectively.
Exactly.
So that's very cool.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
What would happen if, for a specific customer, you have in version 1 and something very similar, you also want it to be done for a customer too. But can you have multiple versions of the same automation integration? Kept it alive, that kind of stuff?
Exactly. And you're actually bringing up something relatively new that we introduced. So sometimes you have an automation process that is sort of standard for everything, right? Okay, that's great. But then you have these customer scenarios where it's slightly different for customer 1, slightly different from customer 2, but some of the core stuff is similar.
Still the same.
Exactly. So one way to solve this is to create these sub-processes, as I said, which essentially is an automation process, but it's like a reusable component that you can put into any process, right? And that's more like if a credit check is common, use it elsewhere as a reusable component. But then we also have something called templates. So you might have like a template automation that tells you how to automate sales or your manufacturing orders, for example. And you want that to be used as a template for many processes. So you can actually have those templates where you create many versions of a process and then keep them all together under the same master, if you will. So that's pretty convenient. True.
So this would also be kind of building blocks in these, that you can use.
Exactly, but more from the top level, right? So the building blocks on the detail level are the sub-processes or tasks. But that's like one step in an automation process. But then you have templates for ways of working, right?
True.
Yeah. So this is usually the way we handle orders, but every customer is different. So we need to make variants out of that template to ensure that how EDI is managed for this customer is a bit different from the next customer.
Correct.
And I mean, we've been washed over with standards over the past 20 years, right? But both you and I know that it's never as it says in the documentation, especially if you have like high profile stakeholders or customers, they're going to like, we know it's a standard, but we want this. Otherwise, you're not going to get the contract. And then you're like, okay, let's make it happen.
Give us a month and you'll be back.
Exactly. And now when you're saying a month, that's also one of the things that makes us stand out, that usually when it comes to automations and integrations, it could be like a month, from that requirement definition to actually delivering it. But our experience with customers, which has been proven by G2 as well, and testimonials from Gartner, is that usually when you have an idea and then you accept it and then move it into production, we're speaking about days or maybe weeks sometimes. Yeah. And that's also something we're trying to alleviate from developers, because normally you might have a core offering, right, where you build your core services. If you're a software company, you build it on Azure, right? You're an ERP company, CRM company. But then you know that in order for my product to be successful, I have to connect to other products, because otherwise I can't sell my CRM system.
No.
Nobody wants to buy CRM without document signing or something along those lines. But if you build it too much into your core code, the maintenance issue comes knocking on the door.
Correct.
Which is why they're using Frends to create that sort of abstraction, but still flexibility. So not breaking their core product too much, but still adding that extendability to it. So they can easily launch integrations in imagine like a marketplace fashion for the end users and that kind of thing. And that usually takes away the pain from a lot of developers, because integrations are hard to code and maintain. Now in Frends, it's all visual and documented automatically.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. One thing that I've been thinking of, how about the learning curve of Frends?
Yeah.
Especially also when you compare it with all those different Azure resource types that exist and should otherwise be used in integration solutions. Yeah. What's your take on that learning curve of becoming a senior
good Frends user
engineer?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, like if you are acquainted with the Microsoft ecosystem,
the
learning curve. If you are, it's like a day or two. It's really quick. If you are not acquainted, you might have used, say, Java as your primarily coding discipline.
True, that might be.
But orchestration is easy for people to learn in general. So maybe like a week in the worst case. And all the things you need to learn in order to become a good Frends engineer is available publicly and for free. We also have like an embedded, like an assistant that you can speak to get advice and things like that. And that's also the kind of approach we're taking with AI, that it should be very conversational, that kind of thing. So it's really quick to get going. And like, because business process modeling notation is such an established standard worldwide for defining how organizations work. The definitions phase, if you want to call it that, for a non-techie user, like describe the process and what it does. That's something like after maybe a couple of hours just being into the product. That's actually a pretty good way to structure how you work with Frends. Like, get the one who holds the requirements to define how's it going to work, what is it solving. Now, you know that this step here is going to fetch data from CRM and yada yada, but first define the process. So engineering can say, why does it have to work in this way? What problems are you solving? So engineers also have some leverage putting on the requirements managers or PMs or whatever it could be. Like, I don't understand this problem. I don't understand the customer. That's pretty good, right? Because that's also one of the conversations that is pretty hard to manage. Like, if you have unclear requirements, engineers spend a lot of time trying to fix that. And we're trying to minimize that gap too.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Exactly. So it's also good that engineering has a leverage. Like, I don't understand this process. I don't understand who it's for. And I don't understand what outcome it enables. Because the process is not well described. But when it is, then engineering can just go to this first activity. Okay, this is where we do the REST API call towards the CRM. This is where we use the reusable component to Dynamics to easily fetch customer data and stuff like that.
About that extensibility and connectivity around Frends, how do you work with, say, PaaS services, SaaS services that you would need to connect to, like these CRM systems or ERP systems or anything else for that matter?
So we have two solutions to that, or two approaches, I would say. One part is that we're building out like a library of connectors or tasks. You can connect to any system, but it's easier if it's like just plug and play, right?
Of course.
So there is a task library that you can activate. So it's like if you're interested in Salesforce or Workday or Dynamics for that matter, you just search for it, add it to your environment, and then you can drag it in and start doing things with those systems, right? But then we have the other solution, because we're not under the illusion that we're going to have everything for everyone. That's impossible. So what we have spent a lot of time doing is creating like a community where people can speak and share stuff with each other. So that means like if customers in one defined market has an interest in one specific problem, they can ask that community, hey, do you have a solution for this? And you can actually share your automation processes to other users in the community. So not only like the connectors, you can give them full solutions like this is the way I onboard my people, or this is the way I manage my Active Directory synchronization.
Yeah.
And then you can download it from the marketplace and then start using it in your Frends environment directly.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds really good indeed. Yeah, so kind of a Frends marketplace indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody also kind of collaborates, but where you can also download those building blocks.
And it sort of alludes to our name as well, like Frends. I mean, we are friendly, and that's also one of the things that we do. We have a good product, but we also have a lot of good people.
Yeah.
So companies that work with us get a lot of support. We're very active with them and very invested in the things that they want to do. Yeah. So if you're a partner, you have dedication from day one. Like if you need help figuring out your go-to-market, sure, we'll help you. Yeah. If you need to certify your people, sure, we're going to get you sorted out. Yeah. And the same goes with customers. So we believe in communitization. And that's been one of the key success factors as we have grown a lot in the past few years.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting people together to speak about problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, indeed, and that's also kind of how we work as a company. That has also helped us realizing the growth of our products in our company and just get useful feedback to grow our products. And so I think that's a good approach.
Yeah.
It has been very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll certainly check out your website to dig a little bit
Just head to frends.com. Frends without an I.
Without an I.
Yeah. Frends.com.
Exactly.
Yeah. And anyone who's interested can just sign up for a free trial for 30 days, explore it at their own leisure. If they need help from our team, we'd be happy to jump on board and help customers figure out their first use case to solve and really prove the value of Frends.
Yeah.
Because solving a problem is where you should start, like what hurts, right?
True.
and try to do it in a very consistent time and then solve it. Yeah. So that's cool.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. It was very interesting.
I appreciate it, Lex. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Well, this was another episode of the Azure on Air podcast. Hope you as an audience also liked it, and we're looking forward to see you in the next one.